Hi, everyone. Welcome to our meetup today. I am Colleen Bradley from Evolve Security. I want to thank all of you for joining us today as we present Protect Yourself Using OPSEC, hosted by Associate Security Engineer at Evolve Security, Kenji Li. But before we jump in, I want to provide a quick introduction of Evolve Security for those of you who are new here. So Evolve Security is a technical cybersecurity services firm. We're dedicated to helping businesses improve their security posture where they are the most vulnerable. We provide services including network and application penetration testing, Darwin Attack, which is a real-time pen test platform, and advisory services and dedicated resources. We are also home to Evolve Academy, which is consistently ranked as the #1 cyber training in the world. And we are actually approaching our next 20-week cybersecurity bootcamp beginning on October 24th. So make sure to get your applications in now. And if you're an alumni out there, don't forget that you do have an opportunity to receive an alumni bonus for referring a friend. So make sure to take advantage of that. Now, to wrap up this quick introduction before handing it over to our host, just a few notes for everyone. If you do have questions, please put those in the Q&A box. We'll leave some time at the end to answer those. And the chat box is also available to talk with other attendees, but we will be pulling questions for our host from the Q&A box. One final reminder, we are recording this event. It will be available this afternoon on our Evolve Security website under videos and via email as well. So with that, I'd like to ask Kenji to turn on his video and microphone, and I'll pass it over to him.
Cool. Thank you, Colleen. Sure. So let me share my screen here. Okay. Thank you everyone for attending my meetup. As Colleen said, I'll be going over how to protect yourself using OPSEC. Before I begin, I guess a little bit about myself. My name is Kenji Li. I am an associate security engineer here at Evolve Security. I've been with Evolve for about 2 years now. I've really been focused on cloud, external, and application penetration testing. A little fun fact about myself: I am a coffeeholic. I cannot work without coffee, and I definitely need coffee in the morning to do any sort of productivity during the day. So if anybody ever wants to meet up or anything, I would definitely want to do it at a coffee shop. If you have any recommendations for coffee shop anywhere in the US, please let me know. So yeah, enough about me. So let's start talking a little bit about OPSEC. So, oops, sorry. What is OPSEC? So OPSEC stands for Operational Security, and that can be defined as the process that identifies critical information to determine if friendly actions can be determined by enemy intelligence. So what does that mean? Well, in simple terms, what that means basically means maintain control of the security and privacy of your personal data. It means minimizing your attack surfaces so attackers can't use your data to basically get into your personal life, be able to use your data against you. And while OPSEC has its origin in the military, you can most definitely apply it in your everyday life. But why do we need OPSEC? So if you're using the internet, your data is probably already out there. If you are browsing the internet in any way, if you're attending this presentation, you are basically revealing yourself to the world in some form of ways. And attackers are becoming more sophisticated and clever in their attacks. Here is an example of the other day when I received a text message of a package delivery. Here you can see the one on the left is a fake one, and the one on the right is the legitimate one. At first glance, they seem very similar. To be honest, I actually almost clicked the one on the left, even though I knew for sure it was going to be a fake, just because looking at the number, that kind of shows you that it's most likely from a spam email or spam text message. But I actually did had a package coming in that day from USPS, and it was a partial. So that's why, without paying much attention, I almost clicked on it. But at first glance, if somebody who does not actually understand these kind of spam messages, they are more likely to click on these. So that's one reason why you need good OPSEC, is to basically protect yourself and understand like these kind of threats that are coming in. So yeah, so like I said, so now I'm just gonna go over a bit of steps of how you could protect yourself. So this presentation is more focused on personal OPSEC. It's meant to be more generalized since everybody's situation is different. There's no one size fits all, but you can definitely apply these steps, just not necessarily in the same way as I will present them. But the first step we're going to go over is identifying critical information. So here is a list of very common information that everyone probably in the audience have at least one here. You have social security numbers, username and password for sure if you have any sort of online accounts, driver license, passport numbers, and account numbers. So those could be like bank accounts, and you have credit cards if you are doing any sort of purchasing or financial transaction. Threat analysis. Threat analysis is the idea is that you're trying to understand what you are protecting and why you are protecting it. There's a bit of misconception in the general public that if you're most likely not worth a hacker's time, or that your information or data is not worth much. But a lot of times hackers have to start somewhere, and even though by itself your information might not be important, but over time as hacker or a hacker get more information about you, they can sort of build a profile on you and basically use that information against you. So we're going to identify. So this step is basically where you identify vulnerabilities. So identify vulnerabilities in this context are behavior or things that you do or don't do in your everyday life that could be compromising your OPSECs. Here are some few common ones that I've seen or heard. Reusing user credentials. So if you are reusing your username and passwords, or you're using a very common passwords, this by itself is a very, very bad behavior, because this means that if attacker managed to get that password or username, they basically have access to not one, but many different accounts. And over time, you might forget what accounts you even have. So if attacker gets that password and managed to get manage to log in, they could try their attempts at other accounts and maybe have more success there. Overexposure on social media. Social media, if you have any sort of online presence, you should keep an eye on what you post there. You don't want to reveal too much information about yourself, both your personal or your work life. That could allow someone to track you down or build a profile off you. So things such as your home address, plane tickets, account numbers, if your workplace has a ID badge, just to make sure to keep it out of sight, so attacker or a hacker cannot get information off that. Using one email for everything. Most people have 1 to 3 emails, 1, 2, 3 emails. They have a personal email, a work email, and a school email. Some people don't have emails at all, so this part doesn't really apply to those kind of people. But for those who do have email, their personal email might be the only one they use for everything. Generally, this creates a sort of single point of failure, which if that email is compromised or you're locked out of it, you might have a difficult time getting access back to your accounts. So generally, it's a good idea to have more than or at least 2 emails, and it's good to have those emails across different service providers. So if you have a Gmail account, you can have an Outlook as your second email, or if you're more privacy focused, you can try the more privacy focused service provider like Proton Mail. Monitoring your credit reports. If you have credit cards, loans, or mortgages, you definitely should keep an eye on your credit reports, just so that there's no random accounts that you don't know about. If one day you're trying to apply for something and you can deny it because you have a sort of derogatory mark that you didn't know about, that's something you should always keep an eye out for. If you're not using your credit or not applying for a new line of credit, you should always lock down your credits, just so that no one has the ability to pull your credit report. This is a pretty straightforward process on either of the 3 credit bureau apps or their websites. Just remember to unlock them when you do need them, though. Not applying updates to your devices. So this is a fairly common one. Not applying your updates on a regular basis. Not many people remember to update their devices at all, let alone their apps, which is fine. Missing 1 or 2 updates, it's not the end of the world. But when you're intentionally skipping updates because it's a hassle or you don't want to think about it, you're intentionally compromising your own OPSEC because over time, if there's a major update that patches a vulnerability or some sort of exploit, you skip that, you might be leaving your device more vulnerable than you could imagine. Not keeping backup. This is also another very common one where not many people keep backup of their devices, but life happens. You might accidentally spill your morning coffee on your laptop. Someone steals your laptop, or in some cases, I guess, some freak thunderstorm fries your laptop or devices while it was charging. So it's always a good idea to keep a backup in some formal way, where it's a hard drive or even it's a cloud backup. Just have some sort of backup your devices so you have some version of your files when you do need them. Risk assessment. Risk assessment is basically you are determining your risk. You can use a scale from like critical to low, just as a way to prioritize what information you should be protecting. Try Googling yourself, see what comes up. How much information is out there? What's the first thing that shows? Is it your LinkedIn account? Is it your Instagram? Just see what information is out there just by Googling yourself. What do search engines can find based on that alone? Are you aware of every online account you currently have? Just do like a sort of inventory check. How many accounts have you had over the years? How do you keep track of them? Do you know if they're still active? Have they had any recent breaches? Do you know what password is used on them? What email account is being linked to it? This is a good idea just to make sure you know how much exposure you have online. And what is your role at your job? Just imagine like how much information you have available at your current job and how you can access it. Are you in an IT role? Are you in a non-IT role? You can basically, based on how much what kind of data you should be protecting, based on the function of your role at your job. And how much access do you have to critical information? It kind of relates back to the previous question of your role, but this time think about it like, can you get easy access to, if you're like working in a hospital, how easy can you get client information? So that's one thing you should assess and determine how you can basically get access to that information and what you should be protecting. And applying countermeasures, defense in depth. So applying countermeasures is not the same as basically telling you to not be on the internet. It's more so just applying layers of walls just to deter an attackers, or making sure the attacker or hackers cannot use that data in any meaningful way against you. It's not telling you go off the grid and stay off the internet completely. Yeah, so those were kind of like the 5-step process of OPSEC. Again, this was not focused on any one industry. You definitely can apply these steps in your situation and lifestyle, but it boils down to identifying any critical or sensitive information, determining what information that you are protecting, what are the vulnerabilities, do a risk assessment on yourself, and see what you find and habits that you can apply to protect that information. Excuse me. So, what are some recommendations I have? So some of the recommendation I have to basically improving your own OPSECs are pretty straightforward. They're, like I said, very generalized, but as a start for recommendation is making sure you have strong passwords. Strong password doesn't necessarily mean it has to be ridiculously 25 character long password. Around 10 or 14 character is fine. So as long as it has some alphanumeric characters in them. So symbols, numbers, special characters, something like that. But also you can have like quotes or sentences. So as long as there's at least 4 words in them, that's usually sufficient enough for if you want to have a memorable password. Password managers. Password managers is something I kind of advertise or recommend to everybody who wants to improve their OPSEC. Everybody should be using a password manager in some form or way. Definitely avoid using your browser's password manager. Try to get yourself a dedicated password manager app. These could be 1Password, LastPass, Dashlane, Bitwarden. Do certain research on which one fits your preference and situation and use that. But so as long as the password manager has like a random password scramble or random password generator, they should be good. Enabling MFA. Another way you can definitely deter attackers or supply this countermeasure is enabling MFA on all your accounts and devices. There are multiple forms of MFA. There are hardware keys. There are 6-digit token generation. There is the SMS MFA. But so as long as you at least have one of those, each one has their pros and cons. But so as long as you at least have one of those, you should be good. Avoiding clicking unknown links. Like I said, as I shown in my earlier example, like I almost clicked the USPS partial link. Definitely try to avoid clicking links as much as possible. If it's too kind of come from the perspective, if it's too good to be true, try not to click on it and try to verify if that link is legitimate first. So if you say, for example, the earlier partial one, my USPS partial, you could also think of it in the ways like, why didn't you just use USPS.com as the link? Definitely go on the website itself and not use that link. If there's a sale of any kind, or you get an email from a sale, try to go to the main web page and just see if that sale is legitimate. So yeah. Safe browsing. Safe browsing is basically making sure you're doing like sort of safe browsing habits. So when you're on the internet, your web browsers, you don't want to go on random sites that you don't know about. You got to make sure you view on the top left corner, you have a little lock icon. That just means that the certificate is encrypted or the traffic is encrypted, which is a good thing. Try to make sure that you always have that at the same time at all times. There are plugins out there that are very useful to making sure they're blocking ads and trackers. Some of them that I personally use are like AdGuard, uBlock Origin. Personal favorite in terms of browser is Brave. That's the one I prefer in terms of using in my day-to-day. And common sense. Common sense in this context really is just more being aware of your what you're doing. So when you are browsing and before you perform action, think first before you actually do the actions. If something, let's say if similar to clicking the unknown links, just make sure you think first before you actually click it. So yeah, those are my personal recommendations first to improving your OPSEC. Like I said, this is meant to be super generalized. Wasn't any sort of focus on any sort of industry or any one situation, but these you can definitely use these as a start to improve your OPSEC if you haven't had these done already. So yeah, here's a couple of resources to point you in the right directions. Some of the stuff I mentioned earlier, as well as some information on what OPSEC is, as well as some more complete list of what I'm presenting. So yeah, that is all I have. I'm ready for questions if anybody has any.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kenji. We do have a question here. You touched on this a little bit, but if you could just kind of dive a bit deeper. So this person asks, how can you know for sure if a text is coming from a reputable source? Even if you are expecting a package, for example, how can you vet that it's safe?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, you kind of have to look to the source itself. So like if you saw that text message as a comparison earlier, where it was sent from was a complete phone number. That by itself could be a red flag indicator. So yeah, like I said, you're trying to look for red flags. See if it's coming from like the actual website. instead of clicking on a link, if you know for sure you have a package come in, why not just go to the website and see if it's actually delayed or not, or it's been delivered. Don't just trust on the text message alone. Just go on like the main sites to verify yourself.
Awesome. Let's see. Someone else asked here. How can someone verify if an email is legitimate or safe?
So there are ways to look more carefully. Like that's kind of where you kind of have to look closely at the spelling at the email. Usually when it's being sent by a reputable company or a legitimate company, your email provider or email client that you're using will vet it for you, and they usually warn if it's a spam or not. But if it manages to get through that spam filter, just check the headers, like where it was sent from. If the headers does not reflect what the email was sent from, so if it was sent for like I don't know, google.com, but there instead of Google, it's using like double zeros, that's right there is a red flag where you can determine that this is most likely a spam.
And speaking of Google, what are your thoughts on Google Voice numbers instead of using your actual cell phone number? Do you have any specific thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, using your own voice, using Google Voice is a good solution. We actually use Google Voice a lot for our personal OPSEC here at Evolve. We actually use it for work-related matters. Definitely don't try to use your personal number if you do not feel comfortable with it. But virtual numbers, you can definitely use those as an alternative.
Perfect. And then another question here, are you safe if you browse in a virtual machine?
If you're browsing in a virtual machine, it's not necessarily safer. If you're worried about getting a virus or anything, yes, that's a good solution of opening unknown links so that if something happens, it only happens in that virtual machine. So that could be a solution to if you're not comfortable with a certain link or file or opening a certain file or link.
Perfect. And one more personal question here. This will be our last one. What is your favorite coffee place and what's your go-to order?
Okay. So my personal coffee place actually closed down a while ago during pandemic, so I
Oh,
unfortunately can't recommend that. But when I did go back to Chicago the other week, I did had a very good. I did go to a coffee house. Name escaped my head. I think it was Ola Coffee. They
okay.
had a very wonderful cold brew, very good Americano. So I prefer anything dark. So just a good cup of coffee is fine by me. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my personal recommendation at the moment.
Awesome. People were really wanting to know that. So thank you. Yeah, so I think that's about time that we can wrap it up here. I do have to say a couple years ago, I spilled nail polish remover on my laptop once, which completely destroyed it. So I can't emphasize your point enough about having a backup hard drive from personal experience. So
Yes.
definitely echoing you on that. But yeah, I want to thank you so much, Kenji, for taking the time to present for us and leading us through this presentation. Also want to thank our audience for coming and being great attendees. There was a ton of good chat in the chat box. I saw a lot of familiar names, so shout out to everyone for coming. As a reminder, a recording of this event will be available this afternoon, both on our website under videos and then also via email. We will have a meetup coming up mid-October. The details will be published coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. Other than that, have a great rest of your Thursday, everyone, and we'll see you soon.